Thank you, Brother Joseph Joshua, for having me here. As you know, I had some opposition, but I'm glad to be here today. So let me share my screen. Can everybody see my screen?
Yeah. We see you just fine.
Okay. So I wanted to come today and talk about the multifacets of mental health so that we can understand the whole person. I'm going to start off with telling a little bit about my company. So, as Brother Joshua stated, we are a grassroots mental health facility, home away from home therapeutic center, where our pathway is to your renewal. We provide individual services, family center services for maintaining positive mental health. We help people with resources for meeting basic needs. We offer both in-person and virtual telehealth services, and we currently have two therapists in office, which is myself and another clinician. We have two case managers in the office, one in-house and then one that we collaborate with. Our vision is to promote generational wealth within the underrepresented individuals and communities through education support. And we also provide resources from healing from intergenerational trauma. And that's trauma that's been passed down by generation to generation, going all the way back to slavery times. It could be those generational curses that people talk about when they get older, they want to break. We also help people learn how to manage just overall life stress. Our mission is to provide person-centered mental health services using the trauma-informed care approach to children, adults, and just the entire family. Our nonprofit arm, as Brother Joshua mentioned, is Magnolia's Hand Incorporated. I did established that in honor of my grandmother because she was very community oriented as well. So I'm a firm believer that if you have support, then you are able to reach your full potential growth. So that's what we're here to do, to try to help other people reach their potential growth. We do that through education, through advocacy, providing support services, and having outreach programs to strengthen individuals and families in the entire community. Today, some of the objectives that you will learn will be a better understanding that mental health is multidimensional, as well as identifying the eight key facets of mental health, recognizing how these areas interact, and then learning how to support mental wellness holistically. First one, I want to start with some statistics of mental health. So, one in five United States adults experience mental illness each year. 1 in 20 U.S. adults experience serious mental illness each year. 1 in 6 U.S. youth aged 6 through 17 experience a mental health disorder each year. And 50% of all lifetime mental illness begins by age 14, with 75% by age 24. Suicide is the second leading cause of death among people ages 10 through 14. And this number continues to rise, but that percentage rises throughout the years. There's an increase in African American and other people of color in the past years as well. And this results from the chronic stress and trauma that they face, exposure to racism and discrimination, community violence, economic stressors, limited access to culturally responsive mental health care, and the stigma around mental health treatment. Although that stigma is starting to decline a little bit because more people are becoming aware of mental health services. So, what is mental health? It's more than a diagnosis. Mental health, it includes how we behave, how we connect with one another, the things that we do in our day, how we feel and how we think. So, our thoughts and beliefs. So, it starts with our mindset, how we regulate our emotions, the coping skills that we use when we are trying to balance life stressors, the type of relationships that we involve ourselves in, the level of communication that we have amongst one another, and setting clear boundaries with others. As human beings, we have a sense, well, we thrive off of a sense of belonging, right? So we thrive off of that social interconnection. And so as humans, we want to have relationships. So if we're not having those relationships, that can take a downside on our mental health as well. As far as our daily functioning, our ability to manage stress, how we meet our own needs, and then how we engage in daily life. So, a key message here is mental health is not just what's wrong with us, it's how everything works together. which makes mental health an ecosystem. So if one port is off, then it affects the other. So as you see in this image, these are the 8 facets of mental health. And I use the image of a tree because it's like the tree of life. You have your trunk, you as a person is your trunk, but then as you begin to bloom and grow and expand, those are the branches. So we look at our facets of mental health as those branches. And if we aren't attuning to each one of those areas and having good balance in them, then our mental health can be compromised. So we'll start physical or biological health. We have to get proper sleep. If we're lacking sleep, we can become irritable, which leads into affecting our emotional health, which then impacts our social relationships because nobody wants to be around anybody that's irritable, right? So we begin to experience conflicts, and then it trickles on into the other categories as well. We begin to not think clearly. We can lose focus and concentration, which then impacts our other areas in life, such as environmental or socioeconomics, which impacts our ability to learn or our ability to work. Then that impacts our financial stability as well. Um, we also have to think about our purpose in life. So, having some type of meaning about our life or being grounded in our spirituality. I know a lot of people on this call are very spiritual people, and we have some type of faith base. So, staying grounded to our faith and beliefs, knowing our values and our purpose, having a sense of meaning and hope. Hope is what keeps us alive. So we have to nurture our ecosystem. We have to be intentional about it. We have to practice self care. Self care helps us balance our life stress and our life enjoyment. We have to seek out for support when we need it. A lot of times people feel like they don't want to ask for help. We all need help sometimes. Even the people that anybody else looks up to and feel has it all together, we all need support. As therapists, reach out to therapists at times, right? Because everybody needs someone to talk to. Give and receive grace, giving ourselves grace, giving others grace, because we're all at different levels at different times. And then growing continuously, doing things that encourage us and keeps us growing. That's the perseverance as well. Continuing to thrive, continuing to keep at what it is that we're trying to do until we reach the fruits of our works. So remembering that we're not just one port, we're a whole port, we're a whole system, and we have many pieces that have to work together to flow smoothly so that we can grow as people. So, for an example, a parent who experiences financial stress, of the 8 facets we kind of touched on, where do you feel like an individual who is experiencing financial stress will be struggling from? Which of these facets will that fall in?
Interactive, everyone. I guess we have an interactive presentation. You can unmute your phones right here if you want to answer. And I do want to throw this in there as well. Dr. Cooper and I already talked about this for this slide right here. All right, I know some people could look at it and think about a yoga pose or think about a Buddhist thing. We've already talked about this. She's made it clear and plain that she is a believer in the scriptures and she does not believe in no Hinduism or none of that. So I just wanted to throw it out there for those of you to see this slide. She's not into that stuff. So any questions right here? She threw a question out there to the listening audience.
And I'll just pause because I'll add. So when I started discussing this slide, I gave the example of the tree of life. So if you see within the image where the person is sitting at the trunk, you as the person, you are that trunk of that tree. And so in order for you to blossom in your life, you have to be meeting each facet of the mental health ecosystem to bloom. So that's what that picture is symbolizing, making sure that you're staying connected to each facet of that mental health ecosystem.
So if a person is struggling to can you say that
Yeah.
question one more time, please?
So if a person is struggling financially, which area of the ecosystem do they need to implement a strategy to kind of help with that area? So, which area of the ecosystem should they focus on if they are struggling financially to not allow the financial strain to impact their mental health?
Man, it seems like it could be multiple. Uh,
Environmental, socioeconomic.
Yes. So socioeconomic health, financial security does fall within that, right? Because it's a part of the environment. And we know in the world we do have to have money, right? Even though we know money is the root of all evil, but in the world we live in a capitalistic society and that's what our world is based on. So in order to survive and to live a decent life, you have to have some type of financial means. So I see it all the time, even with some of the people that I work with today. Financial stress is a major strain. Sometimes people take their lives from financial strain. So having a plan in place can assist with financial security. So learning how to budget. Believe it or not, I help a lot of people with budgeting, right? But that does impact one's mental health. Another example could be poor sleep. So if you're lacking with sleep, what area do you think could be affected?
Would it
That
be
would be
emotional health?
physical and social.
Physical and social. And then I heard someone else.
Oh, I said emotional health.
Emotional health, yes. So our body needs sleep. We need at least 6 to 8 hours of sleep each night. If we're not getting that, we're not entering REM sleep. And REM sleep is the sleep that we have where our body quite naturally detoxifies itself. So when we are entering REM sleep and then we wake up from having our 6 to 8 hours of sleep, and some people might need a little more, right? Depending on who you are, especially kids going through growth phases, they may need a little bit extra because they have a lot of hormones and things that are developing within. So they need a little bit more energy to have a little bit more sleep. So if we're lacking that, then that's when we're waking up sluggish. That's when we're having brain fog, lack of sleep. It causes us not to be able to focus and concentrate as well. The socioeconomic health, yes, it does affect that as well because if we're slacking and then we're not energized enough or we're not being productive on our job, then we can lose our job and it affects our financial and environmental means as well too. And if you recall me mentioning earlier with our emotional health, we become irritable and eventually that irritability turns into anger. And then that's going to affect our social relationships too because we're going to be pretty grumpy and then we're not going to have those connections. And then if I just touched on irritability, right? So that falls in the emotional and then withdrawal from others. Do anybody know what that may affect when we withdraw from others? Go back to the screen.
anyone.
So once again, withdrawing from others, that would be our social relationships, right? And a lot of time when people go through things, we tend to withdraw. Withdrawing is not the best thing. We tend to want to surround ourselves by loved ones and people that we do get along with, people that are encouraging, because isolation can lead to deep depression. And most of the time, people don't correlate the two. Okay. So I want to do activities so we can check into your faucets. So I am a pretty interactive person. That's the way I feel that people learn best is by seeing, hearing, and also doing. So which area feels strongest for you? Based on these faucets, which area do you feel like is strong for you currently? If you have paper and pen, you can just jot them down. You don't have to say it out loud. It's getting you to think about it. Because the thing is, we also want to know who can I go to for support, right? If you don't have anyone in mind right now, we need to think of someone because as I stated before, we all need some type of support. We're not meant to go through the world on our own and to tackle everything by ourselves. And once you feel like, find out, or identify what area you feel the strongest in as far as your faucets are, which areas needs the most attention, and what do I need to add to my routine? That's what it's about. It's about having a good balance so that we're able to balance our life stress and our life fulfillment and enjoyment. Life is all about balance. Life comes with stress. So stress just isn't going to be eliminated for anyone. Everybody's going to have some type of stressor as you go through life. And then those trying times or troubling experiences or even traumatic experiences that we go through, once we overcome them and we overcome those adversity, that's where we lead to our resilience. Our resilience levels continue to increase. And then the more we continue to go on through life, our perseverance levels continue to increase. And so then we continue to thrive. And as I stated before, when we're thriving, we're getting closer to those fruits of our labor. Okay. So as I got you thinking, what holistic health support looks like. So it looks like self-care. And a part of self-care is having healthy activities within those faucets that we just discussed. It's developing good coping skills or self-soothing techniques that we can do on a daily basis to manage our stress, our emotions, finding a support system or having that community. Wisdom Wealth is a part of a community. So this is a form of support for you all as well. Educating ourselves, attending webinars, or even having self-help books that we can read up on ourselves. Getting our own mental health professional or speaking to a medical professional if we're struggling with things to get that extra support. This is an example of a self-care wheel. We thrive as a whole when all parts are working together. So it lets us know that I matter. This is a form of self-love, a form of self-compassion, a form of grace that we give to ourselves. When I care for each part of me, I support my whole well-being. Once you complete your wheel, it's not set in stone. I tell people, don't remove things, just add to it. And you always check in regularly, and it's important to be intentional. The same way you make appointments with your doctor, make an appointment with yourself to show up for yourself. A lot of times we show up for everybody else, but when do we show up for ourselves? You can use some of the examples that's on the screen. So for instance, cognitive health, take breaks from overthinking. Read or learn something new. Changing the way we talk to ourselves. We are our worst critics. A lot of times we self-sabotage, which, as Brother Joshua mentioned, I help ambitious women over 40 prevent self-sabotage and burnout. That's my online program with support. So learning to be more positive in the things that we say to ourselves. And instead of saying, I can't, no, I can do it. I may just need to make an adjustment, or I have to alter the way that I do such and such. It doesn't mean I can't, because once we tell ourselves that we can't, then that's what the body believes. The body always keeps the score. For instance, what makes us flip our lid or lose our cool with people? If you ball a fist and make a fist, everything's connected, right? So we can look at our fist as our brain. This is our prefrontal cortex, right where our fingers and our thumb meet. Where the thumb to the palm, that's our amygdala. So this is our cognitive thinking. This is our emotional state. And then we have our brainstem. When everything is connected, we're thinking logically. But the minute we begin to be in distress, I become dysregulated, our central nervous system is interrupted, we begin to drift apart. So nothing's connected. So our forefront of our brain and our emotional part of our brain, they're not able to communicate. So the person you see in the store that's acting outright, and you like, it's not that serious, it's not connecting, right? So just taking that pause, taking some slow, deep breaths to regulate our central nervous system, doing something to distract our mind, it helps it come back together. When it's disconnected, our body's defense mechanisms kick in, and we all have them. So we have fight, flight, where we're going to physically fight or we're going to take off running. We have freeze, where we just stand in shock. It could be even your child, if you have kids, where you're asking a question and they just freeze up and you're like, answer me. Why aren't you answering me? They're in freeze mode. Fawning, where we just people please and do things to appease other people, but at what cost? At the expense of ourselves. We don't feel good on the inside. We're just going through the motion because we want to be liked. We don't want to be judged, but then we're not feeling good within. Right? But taking that moment to pause, to take those deep breaths, to reset, having other healthy activities on our wheel that we can engage in and do to balance those life stressors and that enjoyment, it helps to balance and level things out so that we're not losing our cool and going off on the deep end. Okay. This is another example. So all that, the 8 is still there, but it just breaks it down into a more kind of simpler form of 6 different categories. So your physical, your psychological, emotional, spiritual, personal, and professional health. As you see, there's some examples in here. So for instance, your spiritual health, making time, setting time aside to be in your word, to self-reflect on your own life and the steps that you've been taking, if they're aligning with what's in the word or with what your purpose is, the things that you value and believe in, going into nature and just being in awe and appreciative of everything that was created, finding a spiritual community, practicing self-cherish, meditating, singing, dancing, being playful, right? We can't be so serious all the time to where we don't have any joy, because there's still joy there even in the midst of the storms. Being inspired, taking up yoga. And then I tell people, even if you can't afford to go to the gym, it's a lot of things on YouTube we can do at home ourselves, right? And then practicing and fostering forgiveness, even self-forgiveness. A lot of time we're quick to forgive somebody else, but we can't forgive the mistakes that we made ourselves, right? And mistakes are just life lessons. That's all. So a scripture that stands out to me a lot is Isaiah 40:31. But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. This lets me know that when you do go out, sometimes we stray from the Bible, right? I've done it. I know other people that have done it. But when we stray off, it's good to know that the Lord has never left us. He's been with us the whole time. All we have to do is go back, and He's the one that gives us strength. And then we keep that hope. Hope is what keeps us alive and what keeps us going.